On today's horror news, dead or alive, what is going on with the Saw franchise? Crystal Lake has found its Pamela Voorhees, some new casting news for Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and is a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie on the way? Let's find out. Well, hello and welcome to What Culture Horror with myself, Andrew Ballard. I hope you're well, I hope you're good, and I hope your week is going as well as it possibly can. Right, let's start things off, and let's start things with one of horror's biggest franchises. A franchise that has so far made $1.1 billion worldwide, and a franchise that had a somewhat surprising return to form in 2023. Yes, that would be Saw. Now, the Saw franchise has long been a bit of a, let's be kind, a wonky one. Realistically, I mean, for me, things hit the skids probably after Saw 4. But as alluded to, 2023 saw Saw X, a prequel and sequel that was set between Saws 1 and 2, and it was actually really good. I mean, there was $125 million at the box office. That was against a $30 million budget, so that's a very, very solid return. And by all accounts and metrics, is the best reviewed, best received movie when it comes to critics of the Saw franchise. And so, of course, the success of Saw X meant that Saw 11 was pretty much immediately announced. I mean, it was initially set for a September 2024 release. That was then pushed back to September 25. And then we had rumblings last week that Saw 11, that was expected to be cancelled. Now, co-writers Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan recently told The Hollywood Reporter that no progress had been made since they handed in a draft in spring 2024. Melton also noting that the film may or may not get made at some point, but that they have a very timely story that they hope makes it to the screen. On that front, Lionsgate now has completely removed Saw 11 from its release calendar, prompting further questions about the wider franchise. Added to that, in its place, Lionsgate has confirmed that The Strangers Chapter 2 is taking that September 26th release date that was previously reserved for Saw 11. Now, the second leg of Renny Harlin's Strangers trilogy, there was at one point a tentative plan to release Chapter 2 last year as well, but yet, those plans, they did not come to pass, seemingly down to the lackluster response to The Strangers Chapter 1 when that was released last May. Now, for those not aware, Renny Harlin, as in the director most horror fans will be familiar with for Deep Blue Sea, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but Renny Harlin, he filmed his entire Strangers trilogy in one go, and there was talk of all three movies being released at various points across 2024. And then, then The Strangers Chapter 1 arrived in May and was just such a disappointment. I mean, seriously, man, as a huge fan of Brian Bottino's original movie, and with a big soft spot for Johannes Roberts' The Strangers Prey at Night, I was massively looking forward to some new Strangers action. But how flat was Chapter 1? I mean, it was supposed to be its own fresh story, but instead it was basically a paper-thin copycat of Brian Bottino's movie. You have a couple of lovebirds in a remote cabin, some of the same scares, even similarities in the kills. And yes, the Strangers, they clearly have a certain MO they like to use, but Chapter 1, it just felt so lazily repetitive. But anyway, after having its own release date up in the air, The Strangers Chapter 2, which will follow directly on from Chapter 1 and bring back a bunch of familiar faces, that has been announced for that September 2025 release date. But circling back to Saw 11 though, just because it's had its release date pulled, doesn't necessarily mean that the film is totally cancelled or that the wider Saw franchise is dead as a dodo. In a statement Lionsgate released to The Hollywood Reporter on all of this, Billy the Puppet, yes, there's a quote from Billy the Puppet, said, "I've seen the rumours, they say it's game over. You all should know me better than that. The game is never over." It's all about the game and how you play it. It's all about control. And I don't know why I'm going off the Triple H tangent there. Hey, wrestling fans. So if Billy is to be believed, Saw will be back at some point down the line. And again, the sheer profit margins made by these movies, that's as good an indicator as any that, yes, we will get some more Saw at some point. Maybe there will be a bit of a break. I mean, obviously, again, it's not going to be this year. Saw 11 does not have any release date. The writers are unsure whether it will ever actually be made, but there will surely be another Saw at some point. Now, switching gears from one big-time franchise to another, and over to the Friday the 13th franchise, more specifically over to the Crystal Lake TV series that's in development from A24. Now, after plentiful speculation, Crystal Lake has found its Pamela Voorhees in the shape of Linda Cardellini, someone best known for brilliantly playing Velma in the Scooby-Doo movies of the 2000s, or it's Hawkeye's wife Laura in the MCU, or hey, For those of us of a certain vintage, for her role as Lindsay Weir in Freaks and Geeks back in the day. Oh, you can even go back to Good Burger. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order? Man, that's a blast from the past. But yes, Linda Cardellini has been cast as Mrs. Voorhees, the mother of a certain Jason, of course, and a character originally played by Betsy Palmer in the first Friday the 13th movie, where Mrs. Voorhees, she is the killer of that first film, slicing up counselors as revenge for her baby boy drowning at Camp Crystal Lake, or in Crystal Lake to be specific. For this Crystal Lake series, the Pamela character is described as believed to be a mother who had given up on a singing career to raise a special needs child and takes a dark turn when she loses her son. Welcome to Derry's Brad Caleb Kane is serving as showrunner on Crystal Lake, having replaced Hannibal's Brian Fuller last year. Original Friday the 13th writer Victor Miller is also on board for the project, serving as an executive producer here. And the official billing for Crystal Lake is an expanded prequel to the first Friday the 13th movie, with both Pamela Voorhees and Jason Voorhees both featuring. With that Pamela role now cast as well, and with a fairly big name in Linda Cardellini, no less, you have to expect further casting news should be on the way in the coming weeks, I'd imagine. And with that, consider me intrigued on Crystal Lake. I mean, when done right, spinning existing horror IPs into TV shows can work really, really well. I mean, case in point, initially, I had zero interest in ever seeing a Psycho prequel series. Yet Bates Motel is right up there as one of, if not the outright, my favorite ever TV show. Just 5 seasons of near perfection. Likewise, The Exorcist as well. I mean, that was one I had even less interest in as being spun into a TV series. But that was great and so cruelly cancelled after those 2 seasons. I mean, in terms of cruelly cancelled, Hannibal, that was another fantastic slice of horror TV. But yeah, then I suppose on the other side of that, you've got trash like Damien, which was, I mean, that was axed by the time only a couple of episodes had aired. So yeah, let's see how things go with Crystal Lake. But yeah, consider me excited on this one. But anyway, moving on, I'm moving back to the big screen and to Lee Cronin's upcoming take on The Mummy. Of course, Lee Cronin impressed many with his Evil Dead Rise back in 2023 now, that would be, wouldn't it? I mean, apart from those who didn't like that movie, as you can never please everybody. But for me, I had an absolute blast with that film. But hey, to each their own, man. Anyway, for those who may have missed it, Cronin is directing a new take on The Mummy for Warner Brothers with an April 2026 release penciled in at the moment. And now we have a first piece of solid casting news for the film, with Jack Reynor signed on to lead the movie. Although a report from Deadline does state that Reynor will not be playing the title role, the Mummy. Now, Reynor is best known to horror fans for Ari Aster's Midsommar, where he plays Christian. That's the, what word can I say to describe him? Douchebag, should we say? The douchebag boyfriend of Florence Pugh's character there. Now, filming on The Mummy is already underway. It's already started, with Ireland and Spain making up the bulk of the shoot, though plot details are currently being kept hush-hush on the QT. All that we know, and this is from Lee Cronin himself, is that this will supposedly be unlike any Mummy movie we've ever seen before. Cronin said how he's digging deep into the earth to raise something very ancient and very frightening. I mean, one thing's for sure, I mean, it's guaranteed this new movie cannot be any worse than that awful Tom Cruise one back in 2017. I mean, on that front, let us know in the comments about your own favourite Mummy movies. I mean, obviously, 1932 Boris Karloff movie, that springs to mind. I mean, me personally, I've got a big soft spot for the Mummy's Ghost with Lon Chaney Jr. And then there's the Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing one. That was, 1959, 58? But yes, let us know your favourite Mummy movies in the comments as we start to wrap things up for today. And we're going to start to wrap things up today with, I mean, what is going on with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise? And could we be getting a new movie on the way? This is from a Deadline report that notes that studios have been contacting Verve, which is the agency that have repped the rights to the TCM property since 2017. Not just that, but the outlet claims that Strange Darling director JT Mulner and producer Roy Lee are names in the frame to do something with the TCM franchise, and also that Top Gun Maverick's Glenn Powell is interested in reading Mulner's script with an eye on headlining a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Lionsgate and A24 are also said to have an eye on resurrecting the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise for new movies. And for its part, Verve told Deadline that it's not officially submitted the property into any filmmakers, producers, or buyers, because this is such a hot and iconic property, packages are preemptively being brought to Verve. Basically, TCM is obviously in demand because, hey, regardless of the quality of recent movies, it is still a huge, major, massive name in the world of horror. For JT Muller as well, he's somewhat addressed these stories, take it to X with a simple, don't believe everything you read. Regardless of any JT Muller involvement or not, I mean, you've got to look with this. I mean, it'd be great for me to have JT Muller involved. I think that's a great shout. But if he's not involved, either way, it certainly seems that something is going to be happening with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But what that is, that remains to be seen. I mean, the last time we saw TCM, I do have a blast regularly with the TCM video game, which is excellent. But in terms of movies, the last time we saw the property was a 2022 Netflix film, which, yeah, for me, I just thought it was pretty darn awful. He brought back the original final girl, Sally Hardesty, from just a pretty pointless role. And the film itself was just pretty, dull. There was, of course, that brilliant bus sequence. And then there's the final few seconds of the movie as well that was like, that's quite cool. But other than that, nah, I'd probably class the 2022 movie as being likely amongst the worst two of the entire franchise. The other one being Texas Chainsaw 3D. Do you think? Cause no, thank you. But realistically, for me, and this is just again personal taste, I'd say only 3 out of the 9 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are genuinely good, and that would be the original, then it'd be TCM2, and then it'd be Marcus Nispel's solid 2003 remake. Other than that, I mean, yeah, the series has varied from meh to just outright awful, horrendous. But that's just me. As ever, let us know in the comments what your favourite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are. And while you're there, let us know what horror delights you've been watching lately, or what ones you have on your to-watch list for the rest of this coming week and the weekend. And with that, that brings today's news video to an end. This has been What Culture Horror. I've been Andrew Pollard. Be well, be safe, and I will catch you down the road.